everyone, I'm Anna Webb, and welcome to today's episode of A Dog's Life. And I'm talking about one of the things I love the most, which is bone broth, with a new company called Axels Elixir. Dan Gulliver and Danny Smith. Oh my word, I'm so excited that you're joining us on A Dog's Life.
Oh, it's great to be with you. We've obviously met you at Yap Yap and at Natural Dog Expo last year, so we're excited to talk to you today and catch up.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. It's
Yeah,
much
thanks.
appreciated.
Oh, no. Well, I'm mad about bone broth, and it's very important to keep everyone, aware of what's going on in the market of bone broth, because what staggers me is that it's become so big.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that's it. I mean, it seems to have gained a lot of traction in as far as human diet is concerned. And so yeah, it's no surprise really that it's now becoming a big part of the pet sector, and obviously and has got the same benefits for dogs and cats as it has for us. So yeah, I think the focus and the spotlight on the benefits to people have helped sort of people's general understanding of what the potential benefits it can bring to their pets as well, really. And that's really why we're here. So yeah, I mean, bone broth for me personally, I've known about bone broth for a long time. I mean, that's really how we started. One of my grandparents, my nana, she used to keep German shepherds, obviously, which are quite prone to joint issues and stuff. And she, as a child, I always remember her making bone broth, and swearing by it. And so yeah, it's been in my consciousness, at the back of my consciousness there for since childhood really. And then yeah, obviously came back into focus once I got Axel, obviously a breed that are predisposed to joint issues and stuff. And that's really how my sort of the deeper look into bone broth and the benefits, and that's really how it started for me.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I love it. I mean, similarly, I've been a fan of bone broth for a long, long time, and I used to make it myself, and it used to stink out my flat. And this arrival of bone broth, it's great. It's brilliant, and it does, as you say, fit with. I think I was reading a piece in the New York Post actually yesterday, all about how it is the real young generation of dog owners that is striving now for wellness. This is why this wellness is this big word, perhaps overdone. And this article was all about things like iPads for dogs so they could watch content that was educational. It was a bit tongue-in-cheek. It was spreading to all sorts of fitness gadgets to monitor your dog's health, like we've got those gadgets when and really, but obviously food and the nutrition features in that as well, doesn't it, Danny? But it's like it's knowing what is good for your dog, really, isn't it? Because there's lots of nutrition out there and supplements that maybe aren't as good as they might look on the packet.
Yeah, that's it. And I think, like you say, I think, sometimes the wellness can be a bit overdone, but really, I think it's important because there is a new space sort of between, sort of pure nutrition and supplements where, people are getting a deeper understanding of, sort of a natural approach and how, that sort of sits, you obviously we are what we eat, aren't we? And so I think people are starting to understand the diet and a bit more deeply these days and how that affects health and well-being. And so, I think, and obviously there's a focus on the natural approach as well, which is obviously that's why we started, because that's exactly where I'm coming from as far as the way that I approach looking after Axel, and that's obviously why they started. I mean, I didn't. Even though I knew about bone broth as a child, it's funny you should say about the stinky thing, because that's why I actually remember it from
Yeah.
back then. But yeah, I didn't wake up one morning and think, okay, I'm gonna start making bone broth for dogs. It was very much an organic journey. Like I say, it was in the back of my mind, since then. And I grew up obviously with, with around dogs and cats and animals of all types. I was, really lucky to have parents that were big lovers of nature. My mum was particularly a big plant lover. My dad has always been an animal lover, really, really obsessive fish keeper,
Oh,
really obsessive. And so I think, there the impact of them, growing up in a loving household with them and seeing that, especially through my dad, that, his obsession over caring for his fish was an approach to that sort of stuck with me. And so for any pets I've had, it's been a natural approach for me to kind of go down the rabbit hole a little bit as far as what their nutritional needs are and what their needs are, in order to be happy and healthy. So really, I always had bone broth at the back of my mind from my nana. And when I got Axel, obviously he's a Mastiff and they're very predisposed to joint issues. So I thought, well, I'm going to start making him bone broth. But my background and Dan's background, we're from a horticultural background. So, from my mum, I obviously fell in love with plants, and a lot of majority of mine and Dan's career has been in the horticultural sector. Looking at plant nutrition, and so it was quite a natural thing for me to. Once I started making him bone broth, it was to think, well, what actually is it in bone broth that's helping him what? And so, it was a natural thing for me to go down the rabbit hole a little bit with that. Obviously, I had interest in dog nutrition anyway, naturally. So yeah, and then once I started to understand the compounds that were in it and what they do and how they interact with the dog's body and stuff, it was then really that I understood the benefits that which we can get into later, that it could bring for him, in a sort of a preventative sense, for as far as his joints was concerned. But then obviously there's a whole other side of it, again, we'll get into about the benefits to digestion and everything else that would, and then I looked at it as to really, how we can bring it into his diet and obviously get the benefits from that as well. So really, yeah, it was a very natural sort of thing for me to do that. And then I started making it, obviously using the finest ingredients that I could, because again, something we can get into later. Not all bones are equal, obviously. Understanding the anatomy of other animals and where the beneficial compounds are that we want. And then, yeah, it was just an organic sort of thing of me making too much of it, as you do, and giving it out to people. And then, people started to say to me how much they loved it, how much the dog loved it. And then, people started sort of suggesting that I make it. And then you think, yeah, okay, well, maybe. But then once it's sort of the eighth or ninth person that suggests it, then that was really what made me think, actually, maybe there is something here. We can, bring the benefits of it to more dogs as well. So yeah, so it was a very, very sort of organic process to sort of start the business. And then once, I realized that actually, we might have something here, then that was when, I approached Dan. We've known each other for over 10 years now through, our previous careers. And, yeah, it was just perfect time for Dan as well, obviously, to do something new that we both got a passion about. And so the journey began really.
it's brilliant. I love, these things because it is so timely. I mean, it was interesting a few years ago when Gwyneth Paltrow started to drink lots of bone broth. And I think she sort of got it on the radar a bit, of seeing humans.
Yeah.
And then there was, I noticed a massive, it was an organic thing, as I think nutrition has always hit the headlines with dogs. But of course, through the pandemic and now post-pandemic, it is more intense. I think, I mean, a statistic that absolutely, shocked me the other day. I mean, I think it's a great stat. Wait for it. In London, there are more dogs now living in London than there are children under the age of 5.
Wow.
Seriously,
Oh wow.
That is a figure from the Office of National Statistics. So,
Yeah.
and a lot of them are, a lot of the new dog owners are younger. I'm not saying older people, because obviously I'm old. So, very, there's no such thing as old. But I think, people obviously often get set in their ways with dogs, and they think, well, we've fed our dogs on this for hundreds of years and he's been fine, but there's nutrition has also exploded, in a scientific way, with evidence on the microbiome just in the last decade. So I think that all of these parts make it perfect to launch bone broth now, or, have ready-made bone broth, because we are still living in a convenient world, and making bone broth in a small flat definitely isn't convenient. But I'd schedule it in my diary, buy organic chicken, roast it, take the meat off, pop the bones in my slow cook, whatever. It was a monthly event, the broth, to have Axels on the market is absolutely brilliant. And I like it. Now explain why you've done these happy bones. So it's packaged, isn't it? Because when you thaw a liter of bone broth, I mean, so what you do if you make it at home, you let it cool, you decant it, and so I would put mine into ice cube trays and little pots, whatever, so that you could use it bit by bit. Otherwise, you get through it quite quickly. So you've already thought of that.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, the form, obviously, the trays are special trays that we have, our happy bone trays. It's really primarily just, to function as a portioning, a way to portion it. Because as you say, when you start making bone broth yourself, and, you realize that, if you don't freeze it, you're going to waste it. And then it's a case of, well, thawing out a big portion, and then you've got to use it with a certain amount of time. So, yeah, in order to keep that freshness, we just thought it's just great and, convenient to be able to have them portion like that. And then obviously it's easy to portion out depending on the size of your dog as well. But sustainability is a really big part of what we do as well. So we did, we looked at many options of how to package it, portion. We ended up coming back round to plastic, but we decided that if that's what we were going to do, then we were going to make sure that we can make it the best it could be. Hence why it's made from prevented ocean plastic. So it's made from plastic that's actively removed from coastal environment, before it ends up in the ocean. And it costs us many more times than virgin plastic. But for us, sustainability, we didn't want to be adding to the plastic cycle. So sorry, we didn't want to be adding to, obviously, the recycling issue. So for us, we were lucky that we managed to find plastic, obviously, that proactively takes it out of the environment. So
there's also quite a lot of misinformation about compostable packaging.
Yeah,
because that's something that was what we went to first. But in actuality, when you look at it, it isn't domestically compostable. It has to be commercially done. So you're relying on people taking it to a recycling center in order for it to be composted, and really for convenience, not many consumers are gonna do that. So it basically just ends up going into landfill where it doesn't compost. So we during the kind of the research process, when we were looking at different packaging, we spoke to various food consultants, and that's where the prevented ocean plastic came about. And it's interesting, really, because the business almost started because Danny was making so much of it at the start that he was giving it away to people. And that's it was that feedback that led to him starting the company. So yeah, it's packaged for convenience, and it's packaged for freshness. It's important, I think, to note that we don't use, there's no preservatives in the product.
It's amazing. I mean, it's just made me think that the whole thing, your whole product, is totally sustainable, because ultimately you're using bones that humans are never going to eat, and filtered water and some herbs, which we will chat about in a sec. So, but you're using bones, which otherwise I don't know what I've actually never thought about what happens to bones from the butchers, because we normally now don't buy meat on the bone. I suppose you do with a chicken if you're going to roast it, but yeah. So it is a totally sustainable.
It is, and the important thing, is that you would be surprised because, once you start trying to source, for us, you are what you eat, and that only doesn't only go for our pets and our dogs, but that obviously goes for the animals that are kindly gifting us themselves to nourish our dogs. So, really not all bones are not equal, far from it. And once you try to we've had to work really hard and build friendships and relationships to get at some of the best bone stock in the country, because we always use organic and high welfare bone stock, because for us it's very important to know the life as much as we can, obviously, to know the life the animals had, know how they've been treated, and that feeds directly into the quality of the bone stock. And we've literally sort of had to fight off chefs a lot of the time, to get the bone stock, the quality of the bone stock that we get, because they're obviously wanted to make their stocks and stuff. So you would be surprised at actually how in demand very high quality bone stock is. We pay 10x what we could get bone stock for. But for us, it's an important part of Axel's Elixir, and it's an important part of, like I said, the idea is that once we decided it could be a business, it started from a place of love for Axel. And so that has got to be maintained for everybody else's family, and that's important to me, that people know that if it's an Axel's Elixir product, that I've put as much heart and soul into sourcing the very best as I would do, for my own family. And so really, everything we use is organic and high welfare. We know where it comes from. We have good relationships with our suppliers, and that's important to us as well. Because, and we're very transparent about where we get our inputs and our ingredients from. We post about it on socials because we're proud of the quality of our ingredients. Like I say, we've had to work hard to build those friendships, in a lot of cases, and relationships, to be able to get at the quality of the bone stock that we get. So yeah, that's the way we approach it, and that's the way we will always approach what we do.
And
It's brilliant. Yeah. Oh no, I was just going to say, when I was doing my study with the College of Integrated Veterinary Therapies, one of my tutors was Dr. Jean Dodds, who's a legend, and she basically said, "Well, there's absolutely no point making broth out of bones if they're not organic." That was it, And she's absolutely right. So when I first met Axels, actually, so I think it was at a Yap Yap event, so we both have a mutual friendship collaboration with Keith Yap, which is great. And that was when we were able to have a really good chat, actually. I remember it was brilliant. And I love your range, which I'd love to talk about, because you do offer a very extensive range of novel proteins. And that's great. And I know why, but explain why you've done that.
Well, it's for a few reasons, really. I mean, as the way I approach what we do is obviously a very natural approach. Now, as far as when we were looking at proteins to use for our bone broth, I very much look at the wild canine diet. And look at the sort of the things they predate on naturally, and the sort of protein groups, and it's not always possible, but what we've tried to do, we tried to mirror as much as possible natural protein groups. So obviously the beef and the water buffalo, we use a combination, because I mean, to be honest, if we could get enough supply of buffalo bones of the quality that we demand, then it would probably be all buffalo. But that's just the case of the amount of animals in the country. We work with some great farms, and we're getting, the quality of the buffalo we're getting is amazing. But so that's our large ruminant protein, and so they do predate on large ruminants, wild canines in nature. And so that's our large ruminant protein. And obviously venison is, I don't think there can be much more natural sort of prey item for a wild canine or a wolf, than deer, really. So it's no surprise that that's a very natural sort of protein source for dogs. And then goat as well. Again, goat family, is a very natural protein prey item for a natural wild canine. It's very suited to dogs' digestion and physiology. And goat in particular is great because it's out of all the proteins we find, if we speak to our canine nutritionist and stuff, it is a very kind protein for dogs. It seems to be quite naturally, hypoallergenic. It's good for the very sensitive dogs. A lot of dogs that are intolerant to a lot of proteins are fine with goat. So I think that's an indicator of how sort of, it is quite well suited to a lot of dogs. And then obviously, duck. We went for a waterfowl protein over a poultry because we feel waterfowl is a bit more of a natural protein group for a wild canine than maybe poultry. And some dogs are obviously intolerant to poultry as well. I mean, we're bringing the turkey. Obviously, we did a festive turkey one, and we're keeping that in the main range going forward because a lot of dogs do like turkey. But we felt, to try and mirror them natural canine protein groups, that duck was a bit more suited. And then obviously a salmon broth, because there's not many fish broths available. Obviously, salmon again is a very natural protein source for a wild canine. So yeah, and the fish loving dogs absolutely love the salmon. It's a different protein throughout the range, but then the recipe that we use to fortify that is the same throughout.
Yeah, so Danny, explain the fortification. I love that word because you do add herbs and I think you put some kelp into some of the broth varieties. Am I right?
Yeah, that's right. Well, we have our sort of, we call it fortified bone broth because we have our own sort of unique recipe that goes in every batch, irrespective of what protein. And that really came from, again, being from a background in horticulture and understanding plants. I already had a deeper understanding of the benefits that plants can bring to anyone, whether human or animal. I have an opinion, on sort of that, in as much as that the way that we live in a modern sense, people and dogs as well, a lot of us just go from concrete to concrete, and we don't have that natural interaction with nature that we would have done in times past. So I think that there's a lot of things that people are potentially missing from the diet that they don't interact with, in the natural world now. And so I think that's why so many people and dogs can get benefits from other natural, things as well, like herbs, and marine inputs as well. Again, I'm a big advocate for the ocean because it's got so much to offer, so many benefits. So really it was a case of, again, just going down. I mean, I spent so much time when I decided to make Axels Elixir into something more, again, like I say, down the rabbit hole, for many weeks and months, studying dog nutrition and herbs and sort of came up with my own recipe really. So yeah, I mean, again, we use all organic and high quality ingredients. So we put organic nettle in it. Obviously, nettle's an ancient super herb. It's been used for thousands of years for lots of benefits. It's obviously full of vitamins and minerals and lots of antioxidants. It's very calming, obviously, to the body, to digestion, and the parsley for the same reason. It's well known for having a calming effect on digestion. And we had kelp. Yeah, we had Cornish hand dyed Cornish kelp, from our friends at the Cornish Seaweed Company.
Mm.
Very sustainable. Yeah, that it's hand dived, so it's the very best quality. And yeah, kelp is a real powerhouse of goodness. Really, it's again, full lots of marine minerals and vitamins and lots of quite unique marine antioxidants. It's a good source of natural iodide as well.
Yes.
Iodide was important for for normal thyroid function. So yeah, we add it in for that as well. And then the other thing, really, we use Willie's organic apple cider
Okay,
vinegar.
yeah.
So we put a little bit in during the cook, obviously, to help extract some of the minerals, but most of it goes in afterwards, obviously, so we're not killing the probiotic in there. So that's in there. And then, yeah, the other important thing that we use is an extremely high quality source of omegas in the form of DHA and EPA. So we use an algae source. And yeah, for us, again, having gone down the rabbit hole of omegas, it doesn't take much scratching of the surface to realize that, again, not all omega sort of inputs are supplements are equal. There's a I mean, I'm always talking about bioavailability on socials because for me it's at half the equation. Something can be present, but if it's not, if the body isn't capable of absorbing it, then it's kind of irrelevant. So really, bioavailability is just as key as something being actually present. And we found that as far as omegas and their effectiveness and absorption is it's they're absorbed as DHA and EPA. So some omega sort of forms, the body has to convert that into these forms that are actually the body can absorb. And when you get into the science that's there, the absorption is kind of is not particularly good, and so the actual amount of omegas that they're getting is a bit of, it can be a bit of a guessing game. So for us, like, we don't really do guesswork if we can avoid that, whereas we found a really extremely high quality source of sustainable microalgae derived DHA and EPA, and it's batch tested, so we know the percentage of DHA and EPA that's in there, and then we can add it in at the correct rate to make sure that it's available at good rate, at good levels in the bone broth.
No, I love that, Danny. I love that.
That was purposeful because once you look into the joint compounds that are in the bone broth that are beneficial, and the same compounds that are in joint supplements and other things, the studies there, they're always run alongside omegas. So for us, it was important, if we're trying to help the joints with the bone broth, then it was important for us, the studies say that the effectiveness is there when omegas are present. So it was important to us to make sure that high quality omegas were there to obviously so that they can make as much use of the joint compound. There seems to be some symbiotic relationship between omegas and these joint compounds, as far as
it's very, no, it is interesting, and I love all this because
I don't claim to be, I'm not a dog nutritionist. I don't.
Yeah, no, but what you're doing, in my view, is harnessing, recent science, okay, and working from a point of now in the present, right? Because, I remember the time when, everyone was buying fish oil, and that was heralded as the great omega-3, and obviously that we know now is really not the case due to processing and oxidation. And
so one fish obviously varies to the next as well. So, there's a bit of guesswork, and like you say, it's about the supply chain as well.
Yeah.
The omegas accumulate in the fish. It starts in the algae and then works its way obviously up the marine.
Yes. So I was going to ask you a question, Danny. Are you using phytoplankton?
Yeah, well, yeah, it is. It is. It is derived from certain species of phytoplankton. Yeah, so it's
right. Okay.
It's very sustainable. It's not taken from the ocean. It's just marine species, and they're actually grown very sustainably, much more sustainably than other sort of forms, vegetable forms of omegas, because they require very, very little nutrient usage to actually grow. So they're grown, like I say, they're grown in pools, in effect.
That's right. No, I've been a fan of phytoplankton for quite a while, actually, because it's also, I mean, you talk about bioavailability. See, I'm still a little bit on the edge of algae. I prefer the phytoplankton because I think that's more species appropriate in a way for a dog because it's more fish rather than plant, but this is my own personal view. But certainly to offer EPA and DHA, to enhance bone broth is great because it is, of course, for joints, bone broth, but it is also for so much more, skin, because of the huge collagen content of bone broth. And we know how many dogs have got skin conditions at the moment, and it's just a process of bone broth being so easy to absorb for the body,
Always down to that bioavailability again, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So that it can, have these health benefits, that you can visibly see in your dogs from agility and mobility, but also health in inverted commas, good skin and coat. You see a dog with, a good coat and you think, gosh, yeah, they're healthy, and bright eyes. You see that and you think this is a well dog.
Well, I mean, like you inferred to before, with the more recent studies on, while people we're starting to understand how important the gut biome is now in the health and wellness of your dog. And for me, it's like a bit of a jigsaw, a lot of things sort of click into place with that, and they're all linked because yeah, the benefits of bone broth, like you say, like we are saying, it's the joint support, it's the digestive support, and it's the healthier skin and coat and the immune support. But that really is all linked through, like what we were saying, with the gut biome, because as you know yourself, a high proportion of the dog's immunity is based in their gut. So if a dog's digestion and gut is unhappy, then invariably, there's inflammation there and the immunity is unhappy. And then when the immunity is unhappy, then again, it's just like a link in a chain. Then that, affects the dog's sensitive, you have an overactive immune system, which affects the dog's, allergies, and then allergies start coming out. And that's really like, since we started, we've had so many messages from people that of dogs who've had allergies, should we say, inverted comments, that have just kind of really cessated or disappeared since they've stopped on bone broth. And for me, it's just that those links in the chain back to the gut. Obviously the bone broth is helping the gut for many reasons, and obviously it's helping to feed as a probiotic, sorry, a prebiotic. It's helping to feed and encourage sort of the beneficial bacterial balance, reduce those sort of more inflammation causing bacteria, that can have a negative effect on digestive health. And I think that is obviously then helping the immunity to stay calm, and for the dog to not be as allergy prone. Like itchy ears. We've got a great customer that has been struggling with a Doberman's ears, and once you started on bone broth, it cleared up, and it just seemed to be down to some kind of overactive skin or immunity that was, stemming from the gut.
Well, the gut,
Yeah.
it's amazing, and I love the way that you put apple cider vinegar in, because of course that's a natural balancer in itself, to help with yeasty ears and stuff. But I just, the whole thing is just so interesting at the moment with microbiomes, because there is a microbiome in the ear. Sadly, I've had my own massive experience of that. As a vet, I managed to syringe Mr. Binks's ears. I didn't ask him to syringe his ears, so poor old Mr. Binks, my little dog, has sadly in the last 18 months had a lot of ear problems, because once you've syringed the ears, they become sterile, which they're not supposed to be, obviously, and then building the bacteria back up into his ear. Oh yeah, it's been a journey, and so he's had put a lot of tiny infections in there, you see. So because it's all bad in there rather than any good. So it's a fascinating.
Then it's also the balance of antibiotic use as well with some infections, isn't it? You
Oh,
need
we
the
don't learn any of that. We don't do any of that. We don't. I mean, in this house, honestly, my dogs are as natural as they can be, in this modern world, with the current veterinary practices that rely a lot, obviously, on routine spaying and neutering. Although hopefully that will stop fairly soon, down to the new guidelines offered by the World Small Animal Veterinary Association. And vaccines affect the immune system very, very badly. So routine annual boosters, which again, the WSAVA have proved you don't need to do, that dogs are immune from their puppy shots, just as we are, from our bits and pieces. I can't even remember what I had as a kid, but, I only had them as a kid. I haven't had a polio. I remember having a polio sugar cube. I haven't had that again, so there's stuff like that. And I think, this is where foods like, I call bone broth a food, is so important to help balance a lot of the over medication that is routinely offered. As we
and that's it. And like you say, a lot of the medications do affect the gut biome as well. So
massive, you see,
especially
massive.
antibiotics, it's like when you have to use antibiotics, and then but you know that it's having an effect on the gut biome. So it's just finding it's a good way to obviously to try and encourage recovery of that as well. And so yeah, I mean, as the physical benefits. Are wide and varied, but the other side of bone broth is obviously the benefits on from another angle, like on eating behavior and stuff like that, because that's so much of a lot of the messages we get. It's not only the obviously the physical benefits that the bone broth itself is bringing, but it's the benefits like on eating behavior. There's so many uses for it. We've had people who it's literally completely changed the dog's eating behavior. It's gone from a reluctant eater to a really enthusiastic eater just because of the addition of bone broth. And I think as any pet owner, dog owner, you want to see your dog eating well. You get pleasure from seeing your dog eating well, and when they're not eating well, it can it can be a source of distress for a lot of people. So that's been a really great thing, and same with with illness recovery. Yourself, it's wonderful for sickness and after sickness and vomiting. We've had some good traction with vets as well, because they're finding it great for sort of post stimulating appetite post-op, when they're not really themselves. Just novel hydration. A lot of dogs will refuse water but will happily eat a bone broth bone or drink broth. And again, it's just very easily absorbed bioavailable nourishment that's very easy to digest and easy
Oh
to.
no, gosh, when they're peaky, it's the best thing. I always feel so happy and I've got peace of mind because I've
Yeah,
always got bone broth here. And Mr. Binks didn't eat for a day yesterday. Oh, yesterday, last week. And I'm like, oh my God, he's gonna die. This is it. He's refused his breakfast. This is when it
that's
starts,
brilliant.
Yeah, I go, but I don't need to worry. I'm so lucky, and brought out some happy bones and they were thawing. And then he gobbled that down. And I thought, great,
Mm.
that's hydrated you, because it's about hydration, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah,
Isn't
absolutely.
it? I mean, bringing in Dan here, because we know biologically that I think we are 80% water, and so are all mammals. And obviously, dogs are a
Mm.
mammal. So if you're you know, sucking moisture out of a dog's system the whole time by feeding certain types of very dry food. That's not helping organs. It's not helping cellular function, which needs moisture. So obviously, all the electrolytes and that are in bone broth. I mean, having bone broth is so much more hydrating
Yeah,
than just water alone. So post
absolutely.
surgery, it's brilliant. But also, what about the summer? I mean, hopefully we've got summer coming this year. I really hope so. Um, Hopefully it will be hot, so we can treat our dogs to lots of bone broth and
Well,
keep
that's
them
it.
in the
And we've had,
shade.
we've had lots of traction, with very active dog users, and that, it was, and that's not really a surprise in some senses because, again, we've had some great traction. We've got some wonderful ambassadors in the dog community. They've really seen the value of what it can bring. As far as a working supplement, we have people that use it sort of, during the working day to get some hydration in dogs that are reluctant drinkers, and obviously to give them a quick boost, a quick shot of, again, it's bioavailability. It's so effortlessly sort of absorbed, and it gives the dog a shot of nourishment and hydration ready for the afternoon. And also, the like we're saying, the bioavailability of the joint compounds and the omegas are important as well, because sometimes the joint will seek those compounds and it's important that they're in the bloodstream when the joints are under load, I think, as well. So so we have customers that will preload the dogs with bone broth before they'll go working.
Mm, mm.
It's great
That's
for
such a good idea. I do that with Mr. Binks, for
yeah, it's
example. If
great
we're,
for post-op,
yeah,
for post sort of
mm,
recovery as well. We've got a great customer lady who's, we've heard that a lot. How they see a speed up in recovery. The day after, they're sort of ready to go again, whereas they may have been a bit sluggish previously. So yeah, it's great, and fly ball, all kind of agility as well. We've got a great ambassador, Amelia, who's obviously our ambassador. She's going to be competing with her dogs at Crufts.
mm,
Ours, she's obviously loves it for her dogs. They use it sort of throughout the day, and she's noticed such a difference that it makes, to the dog's general sort of performance. But like I say, it's just something that they really enjoy consuming during the day, whereas they would possibly turn their nose up at water, and just gives them that little bit of energy that they need throughout the day as well. So yeah, we've had really good traction with active dog owners, because it's you can take them frozen, you can put them in a thermos and a flask. They're dead flexible. So that's been really great as well since we started. We're really proud to support all our ambassadors, to be honest.
So tell me about, because you've got a big surprise, haven't you? You are launching something that I think is a world first. Explain what it is.
Yeah, we are. We're obviously launching our cat specific version of our bone broth. Well, with three varieties actually, and yeah, just because it's something that they can, as a mammal, they can benefit in the same way as dogs and humans can. From obviously the compounds that are in the bone broth, and we understand that cats tend to be a bit more picky and a bit more choosy than a lot of dogs when it comes to protein. So we've tried to sort of stick to the most the most sort of common cat proteins that we think they'll like. So we're going to do obviously a salmon one. There's a lot of fish loving cats. We're doing a duck, and we're doing the turkey as well for cats as well. So hopefully through those three, there's something there that's to your cat's taste. But yeah, it's pretty much exactly the same recipe as our dog recipe, but with the exception of we're adding a little bit of taurine, obviously just to help, because that's one of the things that they can't synthesize themselves. So just a little bit of complementary added taurine, just to make sure that they're getting what they need from it, and just to make it something a little bit more than just the bone broth as well, and something a bit more specific to them. But yeah, so we're really excited to launch that over the next few weeks.
Well, it's great, and I think everyone listening has got that, and will be, if they're not already using Axels, I hope they will.
I mean, it's the same for you. We met, obviously, we saw you first at the Natural Dog Expo last year, and we know you've always been a massive advocate for bone broth, and your approach and that's been has had inspirational elements for me as well. So we really appreciate your support and all the work you do as well. Obviously, to bring people's sort of minds round to this wellness, even though it's an overused word. But no, it's we appreciate all you do as well for trying to educate people and help them to make their dogs and cats happier creatures.
Oh, well, I think the podcast has helped over the years. We've covered a lot, and obviously this episode adds to that. So, you can, but try really. And I think it's important because, as we know, dogs don't live long enough.
No.
And if you can make them live for as long as they possibly can, then that's absolutely brilliant. And, minimize environmental stressors and all the rest of it. There's no reason why they can't.
Thanks so much for inviting us on. It's been really great to chat.
No, it's been great to chat with you guys. So thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks, Anna.
We'll see you soon, Anna.
That's our show. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, check out the show notes for all the details on Axels Elixir, and of course to Mike Hansen at Pod People, who's my producer and does all the production on every show. Oh yes, and why don't you subscribe, because it's free, and that way you'll never miss another show. See you next week.